Hi everyone, I'm excited to be coming to you from Manifest the Future of Logistics in Las Vegas this week. Here's a recap of some of the amazing conversations I've been having. Thanks for meeting us for coffee. Hi everyone, I'm here with Peter. Peter, would you mind introducing yourself?
Yep. Hello everybody, I'm Peter Cortola, CEO of Ease Logistics. Ease is a solution and service focused 3PL with strategic warehouse and fleet assets based in Columbus, Ohio.
Awesome. I love Columbus. It's a great city.
town.
I've been there quite a few times. But you just got done speaking, right, on a panel recently. What was that panel about?
So the panel today was about how customer expectations are shaping strategy of transportation providers.
That's a good one. I was busy making podcasts,
Yes.
but I would have been there if I could. I like that. I like that topic, that question. So I'm going to go ahead and I'd like for you to unpack that a little bit for me too, and anyone who's listening. I work a lot in the 3PL space and the full truckload space, and I know that's a big part of what Ease does as well.
Right.
And so, how are you guys listening to what we're hearing from both prospects and your current customers, and how do those expectations kind of shape what you guys are doing, the strategies you're implementing? And then also, we'll kind of expand on that too, how do you also keep things, I want to say like focused, because just because somebody says something doesn't necessarily mean it's the right fit for your business model, and if you let yourself get pulled in a million directions. So how do you navigate all of this?
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, we often say like innovation is the definition of scope creep a lot of times, so you have to make sure that you stay focused on what's good feedback, right, and what also aligns with business roles, business needs. So how we approach customer feedback and letting it shape our internal strategies, we listen to the demands that are most consistent, but that's still aligned to our core principles. But also, what's the value out of a 3PL, right? You got to deliver, you have to have service, and you also have to be at a competitive price point, right? So if you take those three core principles and you apply them to what it does for Ease, right? So when customers demand and say that we want assets, so it pushed Ease to go and increase our own internal fleet from 20 trailers to 400 trailers, right? When customer demand said we want smart warehouses to optimize pull distribution in the Midwest, we launched 3 smart warehouses, right? So now, what's the difference between listening to customer feedback that's not so asset heavy, right? The other feedback on the tech side is customers just want to have connectivity, but they are getting app fatigue, right? They're hesitant to go and download new apps or go to portals and manage different logins and all that, right? Customers are really trending towards connectivity to their systems, giving them complete visibility, complete communication, right, and transparency. So as we see that, we really, we kind of have the focus is don't reinvent or overinvest in technology, right? And we look to optimize highly redundant, less thought critical tasks. But the main focus is connectivity to our customer systems, right? And then from a strategic side, we've really made more robust decisions on increasing our assets based off customer demand.
Right. I like a couple of things in there. One of the things that you said is you called out price as something that you have to have as a broker, and I hate to overemphasize price, right? As the cheapest isn't always the best. That's true in almost every industry that you're in. But so often we hear that we're working with, we have relationships with our shippers, but even those relationships still have budgets and things that are passed down to them. And so I think where we're at right now in the transportation space as an industry is trying to figure out how price is going to react to different initiatives like visibility, sustainability, any type of ESG initiative, all of these different things. It's kind of, we're trying to navigate balancing the costs with what we actually have to do to accomplish those goals. And so I think that's where the listening to your customers comes in, right? Because you have to know, well, you're saying these things, but how important is it? And then maybe coming alongside and also being that partner and being willing to give some thought into that, here's what happens if we do this, and kind of that cost trade-off. Is that something you guys have experienced?
So we've seen the elevation of logistics companies being more looked at as business partners and having a seat at the proverbial table for large enterprise, mid-market customers on partnering and looking at logistics not as just a conduit to deliver goods, right, but also to make decisions, right? And when you look at how does price become a factor when a customer's assessing, is you have to also be understanding of what is the network that you have, does it have the capabilities to actually deliver to the customer's SLAs? And I think that's a challenge in the industry where you see companies like Isometric that are coming out and giving service providers like ease the ability to show compliance and execution of SLAs, right? That again, it's not supposed to drive and give this illusion that because we do this, it should cost more. Just to understand what companies out there possess the capabilities that align with the SLAs of the shipper, right? And is it feasible to execute based on price or the goal price point, right? So I think adjusting that and listening to customer feedback, but also having collaboration with customers, there's always a way to figure things out, right? And I think that this industry's evolving in the right way of holding execution and compliance in full transparency, letting shippers look under the hood of logistics companies, really seeing how they operate. I really think that is one of the biggest, that's going to be a huge step in the direction of where we're getting over these hurdles of bad data, not good visibility in the industry. And as we continue to pace towards that direction, I think that everybody will be elevated in how we operate. And I think price, and I'm confident price will follow, right? So the more people that we get efficiently operating, the more people that are comfortable with being fully transparent with how they operate, the more that becomes the standard. And once it's the standard, then price will follow, price in a good way, right? More competitive pricing with a network that has the ability to deliver on SLAs.
Right. And I think that when you're talking about being business partners, I think now more than ever, the decision makers at these shippers are getting more thrown at them than they ever have before. Because it's not just transportation, and as long as we're hitting a certain budget, now it's, hey, are you guys considering ESG? Are you considering all of these different things that we're still as a company, the C-suite's still trying to figure that out, and they're kind of testing it out to the different departments. And so they have a lot that they're kind of trying to manage on a quarterly basis and a yearly basis to figure out, does this fit in supply chain? Does this fit in transportation? And then you also have so much getting thrown at us now, like AI, robotics, automation, autonomous trucking, smart warehousing, all of these things, like electric vehicles, and they're just trying to take all of this in and figure out, does it have a place within our organization? And I think one of the cool things that you brought up is your partners can help you answer those questions. They're going to be able to come alongside and think through that with you. And a lot of times, I think that especially 3PL partners sometimes know that business better than the shipper understands it themselves, because they're seeing how it's executing on the back end, and they know all those nuances of what would it look like to add asset trailers here, what would it look like to do autonomous something, or to try a different method of warehousing or robotics. So, and
that's the biggest thing is, as a service provider, learning how customers look at sustainability, look at DE&I efforts, look at bringing solutions to the table, right? Great partners, great collaboration. It's either the customer or the shipper can coach us, or they can align, right? A lot of times there's metrics out there saying we need to be more sustainable, but they don't have the metric to measure what does that look like, right? Or we want to invest in automation, but what does that look like, right? We want to build out a DE&I network, but what's the first step, right? Great partners that, as this industry is gravitating towards, right, are bringing those solutions to customers and letting those be value-add parts that are not correlated to the price point of delivering, right, as a 3PL, but gives these value adds to become a more well-rounded network, more well-rounded provider, right? And the benefits pass over to the shipper, so they can have sustainability practices, they can have DE&I efforts, they can say that they've been investing in automation, right? So good providers know how to align and either know how to coach or know how to say, all right, maybe it doesn't work there, so we'll just deliver on the transportation.
Yeah, and you know what? Sometimes the answer needs to be no, right?
Right. I always say no gives as much traction as yes. Right?
Yes.
Sometimes it's that open-ended answer that says, yeah, we'll do it. That leads to a lot of extra work, a lot of non-revenue generating actions where no's are just as powerful as yeses. Right?
And a lot of maybe frustrating partnerships down the road when especially 3PLs, I think some of them have this tendency to try to be, we don't want to say no, we want to be everything for everyone. And there's a lot of flexibility in the model of being a 3PL, and there's a lot of things that you can do and you can pivot. But I think understanding, what you're good at, what works best, and then also being willing to be that honest, consultative approach to a shipper partner and say, here's what we think about this, and how that would work for you.
Right, and as shippers progress, I mean, that's well said. Questions that need to be asked if you're a 3PL, right? What services do you provide, and what are your measures of success? Right. Because every company might look at different things, status durations, issue resolution, GPS compliance, right? selling that to the shipper, they're going to have their own KPIs,
right?
But there are certain components of service providers that the customer might not know that's a value in, right? So being clear with the intent of what do you do as a provider and how do you measure success, I feel like, again, those questions are becoming more and more direct. I think going in and saying we'll do it all, I think it's very intimidating this day because we have the ability to quickly fact check, but I also think people are understanding that there's value in niches, right? And there's value in compliance and execution, and you really got to believe what you're selling, right?
Yes.
The days of being able to say we can do everything and then hand it off to a team and it just go through the same motion, unfortunately, I think those days are numbered, right? It's a lot of lineage of how logistics, especially brokerages, started, right? Not discounting the grit, because the grit is very powerful, but I think being more direct in the intent of how you make an impact is something that this industry is gravitating towards.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of shippers asking very direct questions and asking more of them.
Yeah.
I think, I've been in the 3PL space for a long time, and it's getting better, but it used to be a lot of, well, tell me about yourself. It's like, man, I would love for a shipper to just come in and grill me. Like, this is our expectation, this is what we do. How do you support that? Because when it's the right fit, you're going to know, and you're going to be able to say, oh, that's awesome. You know exactly what you're looking for, right? Here's exactly what we do and how we do that well and how we accomplish that. And then vice versa, as a broker, to come in confidently and say, this is what we do, this is what we do well, and this is how it benefits our clients. And then if those two answers match up, right, that's perfect. That's going to be a really fruitful partnership. And I think that this is such a big industry that people need to be comfortable knowing where they fit and what they do really well
100%.
and how they're going to actually be able to create that partnership instead of one of those, let's hope this works, kind of pass it off to someone, right?
True. I mean, I always talk to our sales team, if you've been talking to a potential customer for 5 minutes and you're still explaining what he does, then we've already missed the mark, right?
Right.
Theory of relativity took 30 seconds to deliver, and it's like the most important, right?
Yeah.
You don't need 5 minutes to give the elevator pitch of what he does, right? Then it needs to be jumping right into the, grilling aspect of answering the hard questions and figuring out, are we a right provider, right?
Yes.
I think logistics companies are also getting better at assessing that they don't need to work with everybody.
Yes.
Right? And being okay with saying no, or hey, that doesn't work, or we'll just take this part of the business. I think there's this fear as a logistics 3PL that if we say no, we might lose everything, right? And what I have found is customers react very well to that, right? They love the transparency, they love the vulnerability from an extent of knowing your strengths, but knowing how to partner with other providers, right?
Yes.
There's a little bit of hesitation, especially coming off 23 in such a challenging climate, where customers are motivated to have a more diverse network of suppliers, right? And they don't want to have all their eggs in one basket, and you can't fault them for it, right? Unfortunately, we've seen industry leaders been challenged to the hardest extent, and it's never great to see that, right? But I think it does put a very real understanding of the importance of a diverse supplier network, right? And like you said, working in collaboration, right? There's enough out there. People are always going to need things are always going to move, right? Finding your niche and how you make an impact is really how this industry continues to move forward.
It all works together, right? Talking about how if everyone is really honest about what they do and what they do really well, and then the shippers match up with that and they're receptive to that, at the end of the day, your network will start to look more diverse and a little bit more spread out across suppliers, because you're recognizing strengths and putting them in the niches where they fit, as opposed to this older, mindset of we only need 3 or 4 partners, they're all going to do everything, they can backfill each other. And now we have, what I love is you have companies who are focusing on what they do well, and so now we're getting a little bit more niche, even in the brokerage and 3PL space, and I think that's long overdue, and carriers have been doing that for a long time, right? And
100%.
so now we're starting to see more brokers lean into that as well.
And I think it's just understanding what you're good at, what you're focused, where have you invested to be better, to deliver a solution that makes an impact, right? Are your teams aligned, right? It's hard to be a jack of all trades, right? And when you really hone in what you're good at, right? Ease really aligns with enterprise customers that are industry leaders in their space, right? Food and beverage customers on the business-to-business distribution side, right? that have a huge focus on service, have a huge focus on compliance and KPIs,
Yes.
right? That's where we thrive because our operations are built to service those modes,
Yes.
right?
And that's a great call out there. I have to say that because
Yeah.
when you start to grow in a niche and you do something really well, your operations become geared around high levels of performance in that, and
Right.
you become a lot more likely to be just as successful
Yep.
with other organizations that are similar to your current footprint.
Right.
And you really do start to stand out from other people who don't have that existing footprint.
100%,
And you
right.
become a stronger partner to keep growing in that space.
And you do potential shippers a disservice by trying to align with them when you know application doesn't exist there, right?
Yeah.
And again, as a business owner, the business hat of me, it's very hard to want to say no to revenue, right?
Right.
But aligning with the right customers that allow for collaboration, allow for opportunity, focusing on that rather than just trying to, focus on the masses of top line
Yeah.
revenue, I think is a lot more impactful and really helps companies grow like Ease in a more controlled manner, but in a more secure manner, right? So I love this push for this industry getting more specific on niches,
Yes.
but this entire elevation of are you doing what you say, are you compliant, right? And letting all the data really do the talking.
Yes.
That's very important.
Yes. Well, I could keep talking about this forever. You're right in my wheelhouse here with these types of conversations, but we're going to go ahead and let you get back to it.
Right.
Enjoy Manifest, and thank you so much for talking with me, Peter. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you very much for the time.
I'm here with Kevin at the Green Screens AI booth. Kevin, can you introduce yourself?
Yeah. So I am Kevin Coombs. I'm our Chief Revenue Officer at Green Screens. I've been here for a little over 2 years now. So I've seen a lot of the growth in the company from about 8 customers to now 155. So I've been here since the beginning. My background in the industry, so I previously worked for Revenova TMS before coming over here. I spent about 5 years in tech there. And then prior to that, worked in brokerage for a couple of years, ran a team of brokers for a freight forwarder called X-Freight. And prior to that, did consulting work with a company called Carrier Direct that is now Metaphora. So worked with a lot of brokers and 3PLs around tech and process and brokerage.
Very cool. And so now at Green Screens AI, can you just kind of give me a little bit of background on, you guys aren't very old, so you're newer to the space, but you're growing really quickly, and just tell me a little bit about what you guys do and the services that you guys are offering.
Absolutely. So we launched a product in April of 21. We primarily service the brokerage and 3PL industry today. That may change in the future as we go into more data and analytics. Primarily what we do today is we are a predictive truckload pricing product.
Okay.
So primarily dry van, reefer, flatbed. We have an AI and models that we've built where we take our customers' data directly from the brokers. It's broker to carrier data coming directly out of their TMS. Most of it's real time, so it's coming directly in as they're booking loads. And they're feeding us 34 different load variables, so it's not just the price, but we're looking at all the details and data. That's training the AI, essentially.
Yes.
So what we're trying to do is capture that tribal knowledge, capture what is going on in their brokerage and specifically what they're paying for freight and why, and then using that to build those models to predict the price. So each broker, we build them their own model. We have a separate model that's like a market model, but 10 brokers could go in, they run Chicago to Dallas, and with their own model, they get their own price for what that price is for freight today in real time.
And this has been, I hear about Green Screens a lot now, big fan, big supporter, but you guys are really working across all size companies, right? There's not just like a certain size range that you're in the brokerage space, or?
Yeah, it's kind of funny. When we first started and we were first getting into it, we weren't really sure what some of the larger brokerages, right? Those brokerages of scale over $1 billion, what have you. They have a lot of internal tech, things that they build on their own pricing models.
Sure.
We weren't sure if we were going to be able to approach that market.
Yes.
That has changed.
Yes.
We work with small brokers that are just getting started, right? That are just getting off the ground, that have limited data that we can help start pricing freight and getting things moving, all the way up to now we have 6 or 7 brokers over $1 billion in revenue. So we pretty much span the gamut.
Yes.
Yeah, so
Very
it's been,
cool.
it's been a pretty interesting ride.
I think that this is clearly the way that the industry is moving towards this type of dynamic pricing and API rating, and I think there's an appetite for it, and I don't think that's constrained to a certain size. I would
No.
actually hope that it's not. So I have a question, because along this line, you get to work with brokers of all sizes. You guys are in conversations with a lot of brokerages, and I always say that Nobody really knows what's going on across the brokerage space except for maybe a couple different types of tech providers who are pretty closely ingrained in what's going on within these brokerages. So as you and your teams are having all these conversations with brokers right now, can you kind of just share what they're concerned about, what their areas of focus are, what they're saying about the market right now? And I want to talk about the full truckload market, because that's obviously, that's my area of expertise, my passion. But I'd love to just hear from someone who has that ear to the ground right now with what's going on in this space, is what you're hearing and
absolutely.
the feel is in the market.
Yeah, we have a lot of data.
Yes.
We have probably now about 21 or 22 billion dollars of truckload data annually that's flowing through our models, that's flowing through the AI. It is, as I said, it's all broker to carrier data, so it's all, direct broker transactions out of their TMS. We see a lot of data. It's obviously 2023 was pretty tough for a lot of people, right? Margins came down, there's a lot of rate compression, right? We really hit the bottom and then just kind of skimmed it in terms of spot truckload rates, which hurt a lot of brokers, right? Made cash flow very tight, made carriers, there's a lot of carriers that went out of business, made it very tight for them. We're still in the doldrums, I think, a bit. I think rates are still down. What we've seen, though, is a lot of the sentiment is coming back, right?
Yes.
People feel positive about 24. We haven't seen the rates come up quite yet, right?
Sure.
We haven't seen any major sharp increases. They've come up a little bit off the bottom, which is good. What we're seeing is probably late Q2.
Yes.
I think as we see more consolidation in the market, I hate to say this, but there's probably going to be a lot more truckers that go out of business, right? It's going to tighten capacity, which is going to help drive rates up. And that's going to help the market, right? It's going to help bring us back, not to pandemic levels,
right?
but probably pre-pandemic levels.
Thank you.
Right? Yeah, pandemic levels were unrealistic and not necessary. But pre-pandemic, right? Getting back to more of a middle of the road, spot rates in dry reefer and flat in the truckload market. But I feel, like I said, I think the attitudes are improving. I think people feel better. In terms of what you asked about technology and in terms of the what they need to be doing and what they care about, I think the rapid rise and fall of the market that we saw in the last 3 years with COVID has made a lot of the brokers and 3PLs and a lot of the shippers and other service providers in the industry realize the need for efficiency.
Sure.
Right? You have to do more with less.
Yes.
Right? It doesn't mean replacing people, but it's making those people more effective, right? One guy that moved 25 loads yesterday, or girl, can now move 50 loads today, right? Right? Like that's the key, and I think automation, predictive capabilities, market data and analytics, those types of things, being able to, like I mentioned, the capturing the tribal knowledge and being able to put butts in seats and being able to move freight faster and get them on the floor, that's going to be crucial.
This has been such a recurring theme. I've had multiple conversations, yesterday and today, and I'll have more, I'm sure, but when we're talking to companies, I'm hearing like efficiencies, and people. Like brokers are talking about their people. So last night I ran around with a microphone and I asked, brokers what was top of mind for them. And a lot of them said people. And I think that, you have to be able to provide that good technology to make sure that your people are productive and efficient and happy, honestly, and able to make more money too when they're doing that. So how do you see dynamic pricing and rating specifically contribute to helping people be more productive and maybe win more or drive better, margins? What are the different areas that we could see this impact?
Yeah, I think in terms of the pricing component of it and the market volatility, like I mentioned, right? There's a lot of variability from brokerage to brokerage, from carrier to carrier, in how you're pricing the freight, right?
Yes.
And why.
Yes.
The why is a big part of it. It's not just the price you paid, but it's the commodity that you moved, the time of day that you did it, and all the other factors that play into that. You can move the thing I always say is like, you move 5 loads from Chicago to Dallas on the same day, but it's 5 different brokerages. It's 5 different prices, right? And north side of Chicago, you got south side of Chicago, you have all these different, so capturing a lot of that data and information so that each brokerage has a better understanding of their freight, what they should be paying carriers, what they should be quoting customers, that's how you improve those people's lives, right? Traditionally, it takes you 12, 16, 18 months to hire somebody new to the freight industry, train them how to price freight before you ever feel comfortable with them going out to the floor, quoting customers, right, booking shipments.
Yes.
It's about taking that time and crunching it down, right?
Yeah.
Getting them up to speed faster and changing that narrative so they don't have to be experts, right?
Yes.
And have it all captured in their heads,
Yes.
right? Using machine learning, using AI, using technology and data. And it goes beyond pricing too. It's capacity, the carriers they should be using, right? The people
Yes.
they should be reaching out to. It's every part of the transaction. If you can take that and make your people's lives easier, right? Make them more efficient so that they don't have to go search for all those answers. They don't have a lot of data silos where they have to go from this system to that system to that system to try to get these quotes out, to get these carriers found and cover the freight and move the loads. That's where it's going to become most important,
Yes.
right? If you're a brokerage and you're growing today and you're wanting to hire, especially younger people that are more tech savvy, right?
Uh-huh.
You're going to need to have these tools, right? Because their expectation is in the Google and information world that they should have this stuff at their fingertips because the technology exists to do it, right?
Yes.
If they can go online and they can quickly and easily decide all the stocks they want to buy in a matter of seconds because they have a bunch of models and data and things that they can do,
Yeah.
become their own individual investors, why can't they do that in the trucking world, right? Like,
Right.
why can't they go out and figure out what the price of a truck is
Yes.
from Chicago to Dallas?
Yes.
And I think those are going to be the pieces of the puzzle in the different parts, whether it's tracking, capacity, pricing, that's going to become increasingly important.
I couldn't love any of that anymore because it's just everything that we've been talking about and like how, to your point, I think if you're giving them the tools and the resources to really succeed, then you're able to hire smarter and you're also able to fire faster, right? Like if it's not working, it's not working, but that's part of what's so crucial in the brokerage space specifically is like your people have to be rock stars to really help you stand out from your competition. And
absolutely.
so I think more and more people recognize that now, but the trouble is like getting and retaining that talent. And if you're like, let's say you're hiring in strong talent, but you don't have technology and resources like that, and then someone else is seeing, hey, they're still a rock star and we want them and they have those resources to give them, that person can sit there, like you said, they can figure out how to do stocks on their phone, they can figure out how to do the math in their head that if I could, 2 times my productivity somewhere else and also be a rock star, I could probably make 2 times as much money
Make
there.
a lot more money.
And so, yes, the more we want to push to hire educated and smart and a successful, aggressive talent, the more we're going to have to make sure that our business models are going to support that.
Absolutely.
And then if the business model supports it, and then you get the right people in there, I just think those companies are going to be so successful. And like those are already the people who are standing out from the crowd
Absolutely.
in this market, and it's just going to continue to get more hyper competitive.
I think the persona changes too. I think the persona of who you would hire in the past, somebody with a lot of experience, knows what they're doing, can handle it all. I think now you need critical thinkers. You
Yes.
need creative people that come up with good ways to service a customer, handle exceptions, that sort of stuff. At Green Screens, we always talk about like with AI, machine learning, ChatGPT, everything else that's been going on, especially in the last year, everybody's like, oh, are people going to get replaced? It's not about machine or man, it's about man plus machine. Like, you need to use the tools to make them better. Like,
Yes.
and that's where machine learning and AI is going to really improve the businesses that get that, right?
Yes.
Because they're going to find the critical thinkers that
Yes.
are quick on their feet to come in and utilize those tools to be more efficient, right?
Yes.
Rather than the guy who's really good at his job, that has a ton of experience, but is reluctant to adopt those technologies.
And I just have to, like, this is a stance that I've taken for a while now in this industry, and that the last 5 years especially, but the last 10 years, there has been so much progression in just how the industry operates. And even on one of my recent podcast episodes, Chris Pickett called out that the cycles are changing now too.
Mm-hmm.
So like even like the severity of the market cycles is going to continue to increase or look differently. And so now someone like himself, who's been in the industry for 20 years and has studied these cycles, sees that things aren't fundamentally the same today as they were then. There's still cyclicality, but even that's changing. And that's kind of like the core of the 3PL space, right? Is like what the market's doing around you. And so everything has just progressed, and it's changing, and it's fluid right now. And that goes for technology and fraud prevention and all these other things that are out there. So to your point, like critical thinkers, people who want to come up with ideas, problem solve, have that like a kind of aggressive ambition, and then if you had a brokerage full of those types of people with awesome tools like green screens, I don't see how you can't win, right?
Yeah, it's about innovation,
yes.
right? It's about changing the way that it's not changing the processes or the way that the industry works.
Yes.
It's very set in the way that it works, and it has worked for years and years. It's about improving it, though, right? It's about making the things that work today more efficient. I think that's.
And for some unfortunate reason, I think just the trucking space in general has kind of had this like resistance to change. This kind of this is how this works. This is freight. This is trucking, and we're kind of stuck. We were kind of stuck more in the past, but I'm so serious. I've seen so much progression in the short time that I've been in the space.
Yeah.
You've been in longer than me. I've been in the space a little over 5 years, but it's constantly evolving. And so I think that when you're looking at a young person now in the brokerage space, what they've learned in 5 years might be very comparable now to 15 years of experience in, what we all call traditional brokerage or the traditional trucking space.
Absolutely. And I think that's it too. Is what's interesting is you talk about Chris Pickett, right? So Chris is brilliant. I know because I met Chris, but it's the shifting in the dynamic of the industry, right? And the changing of the patterns and that sort of stuff. Older models can't be applied, so you have to have more innovative thinking. So it's an opportunity too, right? For newer people into the market to innovate and to come up with ideas to react to that volatility, react to those changes in the market, right? And it's not going away, right?
Yes.
E-commerce, Amazon, the speed of information, the speed of transaction, that's not just freight specific, that's worldwide, right? Like this is all just changing literally as we sit
just
here.
Keeping up with the times.
Yeah, so we have to catch up with it as an industry.
Yes. Well, Kevin, thank you so much for talking to me
Absolutely.
today, for letting me hang out at your booth. And if anyone's interested in green screens, first of all, if you're at Manifest, be sure to try to connect with them. Or if they're not, how could they contact you guys? How can they get in touch?
It's right there on the backdrop.
There we go.
There's our website, greenscreens.ai. That's our website.
And
so you can go there, request a demo.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Are you on LinkedIn?
I am. You can reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn quite active. So reach out, connect with me. Happy to talk.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. And we look forward to talking to you guys.
Awesome. Thanks.
Hi, everyone. I'm here at the Manifest Future Logistics Conference. I have Kelly with me. Kelly, would you mind introducing yourself?
Yeah, Samantha, thank you. I'm Kelly, founder and CEO of Cake Freight. We're out of Encinitas, California.
Awesome. Not too far from here, right? Were you able to drive or you fly?
We flew. Definitely flew.
Yeah. I could see that. I'm not used to the traffic
There's a monsoon,
on the
I think,
West
somewhere
Coast.
in between.
Oh, yeah. I know. I saw, and Vegas doesn't do well with the rain and the flooding here. I learned that this trip. Well, awesome. You're the founder and CEO of Cake Freight. Can you tell me a little bit about Cake Freight?
We're a 3PL, partnership-minded 3PL. Yeah.
Yes. And I have to ask, obviously, I asked several people this question last night. As a third-party logistics company right now, there's a lot of talk about the market. And we're talking a lot about this has been such a tough market, or it's a competitive market, and it's a down market. And so just kind of keep saying these words, but a lot of people in the 3PL space specifically want to talk about that. But I know that you guys are newer and you're growing.
Yeah.
So as someone who's growing in the 3PL space, in the market, I guess, what are your thoughts on that? Like, why are you guys able to see success, and what do you have to stay focused on to see that type of growth in the market?
Yeah. Well, we're new, but we're not new to logistics, right? And so we've been through some of these cycles. This one's a little bit of an anomaly for sure. COVID, the disruption that caused, et cetera. When it comes to the market, I think whether it's financial space, whether it's real estate, whether it's freight, logistics, like you can talk about it, you can guess it. If you do it enough times, you'll be right.
Yeah.
Right. So for us, it's fulfillment. It's with the partnership-minded, concepts that we have with our shipper, the shipper focus.
Yeah.
Driving the fulfillment side of it, picking up the efficiencies. Here obviously we're looking at technology. Our tech stack is something we've built out over the last year that makes it really effective and efficient for the operator.
Yes.
Specifically our in-house, people, right? So, and at the shipper level, it's you got to stay focused on what doesn't change.
Yes.
And what doesn't change is efficiency, simplicity. We work in a partnership manner with our clients and our shippers, but really we're kind of, you have to almost not be seen. You have to do such a good job where You know, you're not just all over the place.
And they don't really feel the market, right?
They shouldn't feel the market. You should protect them from any type of influx. Whether it's in a down cycle, you should adjust. When it starts to downturn like it is now, we do a lot of quarterly pricing, so that keeps us close to the pulse.
Yes.
We do a lot of contractual type business, so that also like extends us out. So in these downturns, you just go back to the basics and master them, and wait for. Well, there is actually no waiting. You're constantly trying to change and innovate specifically for your shipper and for all your partners, and that's internal with our talent, with our people, right? You're constantly having to innovate on. We're also like 100% remote, so just building out that remote concept has been one of the biggest challenges, because we used to always only be in office. So that's something that we're learning this last year and mastering too. But it's like you have to build, like it's an insurmountable amount of SOPs, right, to stay connected, because you want that culture to be tied together like it would be in the office. And so there's disadvantages and advantages to that. So I went a little bit off topic.
No, for sure.
But
I like what you said. I have to repeat that. When you said, well, there is no waiting. And I'm like, I laughed about that, and I'm thinking, well, that's so true, right? There really is no sitting still in this space. There shouldn't be. But Kelly, I can't tell you how many people I've heard say, well, we're just going to wait until the market changes and it's going to get better. And like we see a lot of times providers just thinking, well, 6 months away or 9 months away.
Yeah.
But I think that, you know what, you guys have the right attitude, and that there is no when we get there, or in 6 months. It's like, what are we doing right now today?
Right.
And some things never change. So to your whole point about, yes, there's variations in the market, but what never changes is the core competencies that you have to focus on as a service provider, right? And so let's unpack that a little bit more. And you mentioned your technology, and you also mentioned some people in there too, and talking about your workforce. So what are you guys doing to kind of lean into how technology can maybe help your people be more productive or efficient, or just feel better equipped to, maybe like more confident in their selves and their resources?
Yeah, it's good. It's a great question. I mean, it comes down to your internal partners, your client partner, the shipper, your incumbent, the carrier, and your people, right? Those are all your partners, and you have to treat them all as such. So the technology piece, the value of that is how simplified you make their job, right?
Yes.
So you want to take out all, and this is stating the obvious, right? Like you want to take away all those pain points, all the friction points, all the bottlenecks, so they can focus on the client. So the better built out your tech stack is, the better you can service the client ultimately. And plus, let's not forget, in this market, this downturn market as we're calling it, we're still trying to promote the shipper to be the shipper of choice. Because and there's a lot of oversight with that right now, because there's a lot of shippers aren't focused on that specifically today, and we're trying to emphasize how important that is for when the market does turn. So if you're the shipper of choice in this market, and you come out of this market the shipper of choice, you're going to be better placed.
Absolutely.
So with our tech stack, when it comes to driver integration, when it comes to your team being able to manage the workflow, when it comes to any type of EDI or API connections and technology that you can build in, and this is pretty basic at a basic level, but you have to go back to that in downturn markets, because you have to not let the outside market affect you if you can control it to the best of your ability.
You need that really solid base, that core.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, these things don't sound super exciting, right?
Yeah.
But I think that that's a lot of the reality of the brokerage space right now, is we're not going to start throwing around these super flashy terms and like saying that we're, innovating and we're a digital freight brokerage, and like we tried that, right? The market tried that.
Yeah.
So it's like, just don't get too carried away, and I think that sounds like what you're speaking to, is focus on the things that you have to have to be a successful partner to your shippers, to your carriers, and make sure that those things are really solid, and build on that right now, right? If there is any type of market that, if we're talking about a down market, then focusing on making sure that that base is solid, so that as things change in the next, hopefully 6 to 12 months, that you have that solid foundation, and it's easier to build on that than trying to fix.
And now the foundation, you have to be a digital broker.
Yes.
So it's not even a saying anymore. You're not, you're tech enabled, and you need to be. And if you're not, then you very much need to consider
I
someone
agree.
who is.
I agree. That's been one of my favorite ways to put it, actually, is being tech-enabled
Yeah.
instead of like this digital brokerage
Yeah.
model. It's like, I think that got, obviously a couple people put a bad taste in our industry's mouth, but that tech-enabled piece is so key, and I think that that's also what's going to allow these brokerages to grow, where maybe some of the larger ones are starting to kind of flounder a little bit because their technology's older, they're over-invested, they're committed, they're not as agile, and with these smaller to mid-sized brokerages, you guys are really able to lean into quickly adapting to new
Right.
technologies, enabling your people, and then you also have the luxury of listening to your people's feedback.
Right.
And being able to say, okay, we don't like this, we need to change this. We can, because we didn't go, sink all this money into these softwares and these legacy platforms for 20 years.
Right.
So you're in such a unique position to continue to innovate.
Yeah, and that's what brought Cake to be Cake Freight. Like we were tied to in my previous life, we were tied to a legacy software system. I was invested in it. It was and the market has shifted so fast that now I can just get it off the shelf out of the box and I can get the best.
Yes.
And so when you're looking at it from a shipper focus and a like an employee potential retention focus, you need to have something that moves fast and quick. And that look around us. There's so much technology here that I've never seen, and now we have to dive into this to understand it. I mean, there's AI, 14 booths over there that have AI on it. So
something, yes.
it's we have to stay ahead of that. And so if you are in a legacy platform, you don't have the ability to flex and move and stretch when you need to. And so that's really important. We want to be ahead of the industry and not fall behind it.
And I think that this is really important when we're talking about being tech-enabled, when we're talking about just being, successful within your own four walls, let's call it, right? Internally, you guys are able to grow and be successful, but I don't think that shippers necessarily want to hear about, here's all of our different tech systems that we use internally, because at the end of the day, most of the time these days, there's probably either an EDI or an API feed that's taking everything you're doing anyway and pushing it into the way they want to see it.
Yeah.
But when you're handling conversations with shippers, how do you maybe help them understand the value of you guys having that strong technology? Like, what are kind of the indirect ways that does impact them within your organization?
Yeah, so that brings us to like our ICP, right? So we're very much focused on the mid-market. Now we're present with enterprise, of course, because you have to be.
Yes.
You have to be able to aggregate all that data, use that data to your advantage, to be able to bring that to the mid-market to where you can provide them the exposure to what their business can look like at an enterprise level from a pricing perspective,
Yes,
right?
true.
But when we look at the mid-market, we're looking for freight spends that are anywhere between 25 and 100 million, where we can really come in, have a seat at the table, and understand their business at a more methodical level and understand how to help them scale in their own marketplace. So like, with that partnership level in mind, how can our technology drive their efficiency? What else do they need in order to be competitive in their marketplace? So if they're looking to break into Canada, I mean, we've helped shippers move their first 50 loads into Canada, and they never thought that was their market before, but it's like, hey, do you guys have interest in going into Canada or Mexico and that's not necessarily our specialty per se, but we ideate, innovate, and when we collaborate at the table with the shipper, we get just a much deeper understanding of their business and where they want to go.
Yeah, and if you guys didn't have a strong internal technology stack, you wouldn't be able to have this data to present to them or show them what that would look like for them.
Yeah, so if you take a mid-market individual and you have enterprise RFP, this is, I guess, kind of a little bit of the secret sauce, but like when you think of getting someone that has a $25 million freight spend into a market like this, let's just say a metropolitan like Houston, for example. There's 4 big retailers there, 5, 6. There's a specific amount of business and volume that go into Houston. And if you can work with a grocer or a wholesaler or a food service company, we predominantly are in food and beverage for the most part, at least right now. But if you can give them that exposure to that capacity, to that availability, and you can allow them to be as competitive as the marketplace, then that's where you're starting to like really find the sweet spot for them.
Yeah.
And that's where they see the value in it, because otherwise they're competing in a market that's 10 times their size.
Right.
So when we have the seat at the table and we're able to show them that's where. And then to answer your question about the tech stack, It's just, you have to have it.
Yes.
You absolutely have to have it. So your differentiators, when you're looking for those, it is case by case. It really is. And
Okay.
we find the mid-market to be where we can formulate those partnerships. They want to do business with us.
Yes.
They want to do business. They just sometimes don't know it yet.
Right.
And you have
right.
to, you have
Show
to convince
them.
them.
Yes.
Yeah, you have to
Yeah.
show them, and they're a highly intelligent, incredible leadership team. And when you're able to work with them at that level, you can really make a difference for them and an impact.
You guys are able to help them, and I think that that's something that's really cool actually about the mid-size shippers partnering with more of these like mid-size brokerages instead of this idea that we have these large mega brokerages that people go to for any type of like managed services or analysis or anything like that, and that they do see you as smaller, right? But when you have a mid-size brokerage partnering with these mid-size shippers, you really have you have executive teams coming to the table and collaborating because you understand where you're coming from, and you're able to still say, hey, we do have exposure in the enterprise space. We do understand what's happening. Let's start like forward thinking. What you guys are doing, how you want to grow the new wholesalers or grocers that you want to break into. What would that look like for you? What would we have to accomplish to get there? I think that's really cool because you just get to have those super high level conversations that are productive, and it's actually like it's going to go somewhere, and they're not just a little somebody to you guys. Like that's a true partner for you guys when you're able to have those conversations.
Yeah, and it gives them that boutique feel.
Yes.
It gives them a tailored approach of how they're going to manage their freight spend.
Yes.
And that's our niche.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for talking to me today. I really enjoyed it. If anyone would like to get in contact with you, what's the best way to reach out and contact you?
LinkedIn.
LinkedIn?
Yeah, Kelly
Yes.
Swanberg.
Kelly Swanberg on LinkedIn. Feel free to shoot him a message. Thank you so much, guys, for meeting us for coffee. Hi, everyone. I'm here with Dima. Dima, would you mind introducing yourself?
Sure. I'm Dima. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Bigger Picture. We're a scheduling automation solution.
Okay, so scheduling automation solution. Can you help me understand a little bit more what that is and who you guys work with?
Yeah, we work with carriers and brokers to help them automate their scheduling workflow. It is one of the most manual processes today and actually quite expensive, about $10 per appointment being booked. And really not a lot of solutions built around it today for automation.
Yes.
And so our focus is really driving technology to support that.
Well, I love this conversation because I was part of scaling a startup brokerage, and I honestly didn't know that a solution like this existed. And I also can attest to how time-consuming and sometimes just frustrating it is scheduling appointments. And I think one of the most frustrating parts for me was when you're trying to grow in the brokerage space, your people are your best resource. And we were very lucky to have some super talented people. And I just was so frustrated that I had these really talented people doing things like scheduling appointments. And so we were trying to work on that and get that off of their plate. But can you talk to me a little bit about, like, in the 3PL space that you service, what do you see the impact be when you can go into a brokerage and say, hey, you guys don't have to have your people doing this anymore or spending as much time? What are some of the benefits of working with scheduling automation?
Yeah, for scheduling automation, we really look at finding the most optimal appointments and getting them as quickly as possible. Because the sooner you secure the right appointments, the better margin you're going to get on your orders.
Right.
The better carriers are going to get behind it. And then you're also freeing up that time for that rep to potentially go quote more freight, go build more relationships with their existing customer base, while also driving on-time performance, which is one of the key metrics in that growth factor.
And that's like something I didn't even think about, but you're absolutely right how many times it's frustrating when you don't get that ideal appointment time. And then I think that what that does is it impacts your ability to secure capacity at a competitive rate. And so on that note, I do think that there's a lot of focus right now too on how well you're buying capacity. Because we're in a very tough market environment for a lot of brokerages. A lot of brokerages are trying to figure out how they can be more price competitive because it is a very price sensitive market right now, and what we would call a shipper market and a low market. But aside from just how you're buying, how do you guys contribute to helping brokerages maybe lower their fixed operational costs?
Yeah, so we view it as the way an operations rep spends their day. Where are the major bottlenecks in their operation? And that's really the manual tasking. So even thinking about what does my transit time need to be, what's going to be ideal for this carrier, sending email data entry. I mean, it's such a bog down, it's not a value add to the organization. So really allowing them actually to take that off their plate and think about ways to grow different lanes, finding different carriers that would be more interested in the lanes with the right appointments and matching those up.
Right, freeing your people up to do activities that are hopefully going to be actually contributing to improvements within the organization, as opposed to activities that are going to result in the same thing probably over and over again because their time isn't focused elsewhere.
We see that there's more opportunity to drive additional revenue, more loads in the door, more quoting, more customer outreach, and really being able to handle a lot more freight under one person than being spread thin across multiple people.
Yes. Well, I didn't know that you existed, so I'm loving this conversation. But I think that something else that I've talked with a couple of people who do outsourced staffing. I'm a huge fan of outsourced staffing in the 3PL space, but I think this is where I would challenge leaders within 3PLs to constantly be evaluating what's out there and what's possible, because sure, we can say if we outsource this manual, tedious work, then we lower our operational costs, but we're just really moving the problem somewhere else, right? And it's not actually being improved. And that might help lower those operational costs, but it's probably not going to do a whole lot. And if not, maybe make it a little bit more difficult to secure the right type of appointments to maximize revenue. So instead of just getting the problem moved somewhere else, we're trying to say, no, let's take this head on in-house and see what we can come up with.
Yeah, we're really looking at more of the intelligence behind scheduling, understanding the patterns that certain facilities, how they behave, what are the right times to pick, how long do those appointments take, depending on when you're going into these facilities. So really thinking about like the impact it's going to have on those carriers.
Right.
And being more thoughtful on scheduling, so that the execution actually goes as planned.
Yes, I love that. Yeah. Well, that's really awesome. Thank you so much for
Yeah,
spending some time with me and telling me more
really
about what you do. If anyone's interested, like I am, what would be a good way for them to reach out or contact you guys?
Yeah, well, we're biggerpicture.co. Definitely reach out to us through our website or reach out to me directly on LinkedIn.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining me.
I really appreciate it.